Welcome to the Rhythm Room, a monthly moment to realign with grace. I'm Coach Paula, and each month we explore how awareness, intention, and momentum create a rhythm for growth that lasts. So let's take a breath, settle in, and step into this month's rhythm together. Let's go. Grace to you. This is Coach Paula, your life transitions coach. Allow me to welcome you to this edition of the Rhythm Room. We're on the 16th of every month. We gather at 8:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to talk about the monthly teaching associated with the pH Balance blog, which comes out on the first of the month. That blog is rooted in virtues of the fruit of the Spirit, and each month we dive into a particular topic. This month, we are talking about self control. So let's dig in. Let's go. There's a rhythm in growth. We talk about growth and we talk about growing. There's a rhythm in growth that actually has nothing to do with speed. In PH Academy this month, we've been talking about velocity awareness, and our pace is very significant to understand how we are moving. But remember, it has nothing to do with speed because you can be moving fast, but not really making any progress. And so it's not about moving fast, it's about moving grounded. Growth isn't about how fast you move, it's about how deeply rooted you truly are. And you want to be making progress because just because you're moving also doesn't mean that you're making progress. You can be moving in the wrong direction and not accomplishing what it is that you need to get done. And so even when I think about pace and growing and the rhythm of growing, I'm reminded of the Chinese bamboo tree. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but the Chinese bamboo tree, it is cited where it appears to not be growing for upwards of 5 years. And so you have this tree that looks unfruitful and barren and not productive, but then yet somewhere after that fifth year, it flourishes considerably. And so this reminds us that that rhythm of growth, it's not about the speed. It's about what's happening underneath the underbelly. Are you rooted? Are you being nourished? Are you being cared for even in the process before you sprout? And so it's not a matter of comparing yourself to anything or anyone or any other tree out there in the forest. Do you, boo? And be specific in who and what you are. Be comfortable in the space of who you are, knowing that your rhythm of growth is not necessarily someone else's. It is your rhythm. It is not about speed. It is about how well you are rooted and grounded. So, what does self control have to do with all of this? I'm so glad you asked. Self control isn't just about saying no to what's wrong. It's about knowing when to say yes. You got to know when to say yes. We have been so conditioned in our world to be in the hustle and to be in the bustle of things that we lose sight often of what is important. We're saying yes, yes, yes to so many things, but there are many things that we really need to be saying no to. I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and I said, every time that you say yes to someone else, you're actually saying no to yourself. Because her whole point was is that, well, Coach Paula, I struggle with saying no. I'm like, no, baby, you don't struggle with saying no. You say it very well to yourself because you're saying yes to everyone else. So self-control, it's not just about saying no to what's wrong. It's all about saying no to what's right sometimes, right? Knowing when to say yes. Say yes to yourself and say yes to the things that you need to get done. And sometimes saying yes to yourself and saying no to others helps them to grow as well. Because sometimes when we're saying yes and we're helping others and we're doing things, we're more of an enabler than we are a help. And so it's important to discern the yes. We've been talking about the radar. I hope you've been following along with the components of radar and velocity awareness this month. But that D in radar is discern. So it's important that we discern when we should be saying yes and discern when we should be saying no. That's the power of that sacred yes. By having a sacred yes, it protects our purpose. It protects what we are supposed to be doing and when we are supposed to be doing it. This creates wisdom in our lives, and it helps us to manage our priorities and our purpose. So, self control is a fruit that we must bear in our lives that helps us to know when to say yes, when to say no. Um, and the A in the radar, I mean, some of that radar stuff just really resonates so powerfully with me. The second A talks about some things that are being aligned. Because too often we're doing things maybe because it's available, but are we doing it because it's aligned with our purpose? It's aligned with the plans that we have. We have to learn how to use self control to know when to say yes and when to say no. The third point I want to emphasize is that sometimes the holiest thing that you can do is wait. There's nothing wrong with waiting. There's absolutely nothing wrong with waiting. But we're not waiting from a place of fear, but from reverence to your inner rhythm. We're not jumping in to doing things, right? We're waiting, we're assessing that radar, we're recognizing, we're assessing, we're discerning, we're aligning, and then we're responding. If you got to do the R, the A, the D, and the A before you can respond, that means that there's an inherent weight in there. So sometimes that holiest thing that you can do is wait. Maybe before you respond to that email, take a few seconds and wait. Maybe before you respond to someone verbally, take a few seconds, a few moments and wait. I used to always tease my husband because he was slow to speak. The Bible encourages us to be slow to speak, right? And, he was very careful about his words because he firmly believed that our words have power and the things that we say are significant. He was a man of great integrity. And so he was very specific so as to not say something if he was not going to be able to honor it. And sometimes, I kind of prided myself on having a quick comeback and having something quick to say in the moment. And so I had to learn a lot from him to be able to glean how significant it is for me to monitor my words. Sometimes the holiest thing you can do is wait, because once you say it, you can't take it back. And we have to remember that every word that we speak must be a gift. We have to say things that are uplifting and encouraging to others. That doesn't mean that we don't give constructive feedback and constructive instruction to others. No, it just means that we say it with grace. Let our words be tempered and seasoned with grace. And so I'm talking a lot about speaking and words, and that's important for sure. But then also, I'm talking about just rushing to do things. Sometimes it's like, oh, we get into a habit, and I love habits. And if you know Coach Paula, I love the book Atomic Habits, because what we train ourselves to do daily is ultimately what we will become. But sometimes we can be so stuck in our routine that we lose sight of the weight. Even though we have a routine and even though we have a method for doing things, we still must always check in. That's part of radar too. Our lives have a forecast, just like we check the weather every day. Our lives have a forecast. We need to check in with ourselves emotionally, spiritually, physically to make sure that, yep, I could do this. But before I do that, let me just have a quick temp check. That's one of the things that I love within PH Academy. We have the daily PH check, which is an opportunity to just take a minute and check in with yourself. That's one of the foundational tenets of the teaching within the Academy. And so for those of you that are students, I hope you enjoy that particular aspect. And for those that you are not, I hope you will consider joining and enrolling in the PH Academy, because that's just only one of the 6 teaching frameworks. But remember, you've got to wait. There's nothing wrong with taking a pause It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you don't know. It doesn't mean that you're afraid. It means that you're channeling and honoring your inner rhythm. That you're taking a moment to be in tune with yourself, what your desires are, what your needs are before you respond. And then as a result, your responses are rooted ultimately in wisdom and grace. Next point. You don't have to chase what you've been called to carry. Let that sit in. You don't have to chase what you've been called to carry. That's why it's so important for you to know what is your purpose, know what is your role, know what is your responsibility, know what is the value that you bring to the circumstance and to the situation. As a result, then you don't have to chase anything, baby, because you already know what you bring to the table. You already know what you've been destined to carry, what you've been destined to do. So we don't have to chase down anything. So the self-control here allows you to be paced, allows you to be settled, and it allows you ultimately to lead to growth that lasts. No chasing down things. You don't have to do that. Because ultimately, what belongs to me is going to come my way. I don't have to chase down anything. I don't have to try to position myself or posture myself. Sometimes I see people posturing and doing different things, and I just shake my head because it's just not necessary. What is mine is ultimately going to come to me, whether it comes immediately or whether it comes next week, next month, next year. If it's for me, I'm going to receive it. So I don't have to posture myself or jockey to try to do this or that or, try to dull someone else's shine. There's plenty enough darkness out here for all of us to equally shine. And so I don't have to chase down. I don't have to try to make it happen for me because it's going to happen. What ultimately belongs to me is going to come my way. I don't have to chase it down. If it's something that I've been designed to carry, if it's something that I've been designed to do, I don't have to chase it down. I just have to simply execute and allow self-control to be my pace. So I appreciate you joining the Rhythm Room this month. I hope something that I have said has shifted your energy and awakened your potential. I hope that you'll stay connected, that you're subscribing to the YouTube channel at I am Paula Hollis, that you join my mailing list, that perhaps you'll consider exploring those courses in PH Academy. You can create a free account with no pressure, just an opportunity to preview some of the things that are available. And then lastly, if something that I've shared has encouraged you, please consider donating to support continued programming. Every gift matters, and anything that I receive is ultimately used for the fulfillment of this programming and associated resources. And so I appreciate you being here. Continue to stay in rhythm, and I hope to see you next month on the 16th. Take care. Thanks for joining me in the Rhythm Room today. This has been your space to reflect, realign, and grow at a pace that honors who you're becoming. Until next time, stay grounded, stay present, and stay in rhythm.